Hi there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Today I have a really fun video. Now I was browsing online and saw these Transfer Me sheets. These are by Dress My Crafts and I have just a couple here. There are heaps and heaps and heaps of different ones available. But I think I said this in a previous video, sometimes I just feel like not having to do all the hard work, but still wanting to create. Now this version today is going to be a little bit of fun. I had a really fun time with it. So you can see all of the images here are mirror images because you transfer them face down. So on the back they show you what they really look like and what they read like. There is also some white ones and some gold ones, which are fun as well. And I've got a fair few videos coming up that will include these, as well as kind of my normal things. I just want to include it in my card making. But for today, this is the sheet that I'm kind of focusing on. Now, these are a little bit of fun when you don't feel like creating everything from scratch, but still feel like getting crafty. So that's what this is for me. But there are so many different uses. There are instructions on the back about how you do it, and I'm just planning out which ones I think I want to use on my card today. Now this product is new to me. I mean, the theory of the product is not new, but these products in particular are new to me, and I saw them and thought, that sounds like fun. That does sound like something that I would love to include and kind of love to try. I love to try new things. I'm always open to trying new things, and so today I am going to be trying out these. I have made a few cards of them and there will be a few videos that I have already filmed. I'm not sure if this will be the first one in the series or which one I will release first, but you just need to cut around the images. I am cutting probably like a little too fussy around them. You don't need to be this fussy. But honestly, I didn't fussy cut them because I'm still leaving a big white border and the border doesn't really matter. So I did cut around them, but in future videos you'll see me be a lot less careful about how close I cut. You don't need to be this fussy. But I am learning with this process as I go as well, and sometimes you're not sure exactly how it's meant to go and you kind of try things out. But I love the idea of not having to kind of invest in like a really big stamp or something of this. I mean, yes, these are one-time use products, I guess, but I don't know. It's nice to try new things, and that's what I was enjoying about today. So I'm starting off with a piece of watercolor cardstock because I'm going to be adding water to these for the transfers. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to run into any problems there. So this is the Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock, and I have cut out all my pieces. Now these are the colours I kind of thought about: black soot, old paper, weathered wood, Victorian velvet, hickory smoke, and chipped sapphire. Now I actually end up narrowing these down quite a bit, but I was just trying to look through the oxides that I have, and I do not have even close to the collection of oxides. I don't even have half of the collection. So when I'm looking through my inks, I just do my best to try and get the nearest that I can. So I ended up using the Blueprint Sketch, the Victorian Velvet, the old paper, and then I think I used a little bit of the weathered wood as well. So I'm just popping these down onto an acrylic block just so I can pick them up. First of all, I'm going to add a bit of water, just using a spray bottle, not saturating the paper, but I am making sure that it's kind of got a nice light coating because I want to put a little bit of color behind my transfers. So I'm starting off, this is the Victorian Velvet, which is kind of like a dusty Victorian pink color. Then coming in with a little bit of the blue, which when it mixes with that pinky, it makes kind of like a grey purple color. And as I said, I'm just going for a really kind of watercolor flow. I think using actual watercolors would look really good here. I have been thinking recently that I may invest in a kind of palette of watercolors. So if you have any advice on which would be the best to kind of go for, a palette of maybe, I don't know, 12, 24. I don't need a whole lot of colors. I like mixing and things, but I don't use it all the time. But I have been thinking it kind of would be helpful for exactly these projects. But yeah, I'll just see. I've been thinking about it, and for now I am really able to use my inks. I love being able to use the water reactive inks. It makes them so versatile, and it means that I don't have to have another product in my crafting space. But yeah, I've been thinking about it anyway. I am going to dry this first layer here, and I didn't want the old paper, which is that kind of light olivey greeny grey colour there, so I'm just wiping that off, but I wanted to use the rest of this ink to create a few little splotches and things. So I'm just going to leave it there on my acrylic block, turn my paper upside down, and then really lightly and quickly tap it into the colour that is left there on my acrylic block. And now this is exactly the colours that I used in the first place, so that I know it's all going to match, and there's nothing in there that will really make mud, so I kind of feel like I can't really go wrong. So just a few little splotches, and I'm leaving that white space there in the middle on purpose just to give it a little bit of contrast as well. Now here's the thing. When I have water reactive inks, which is a great thing, I'm going to be adding water with the transfers. So I am going to need to stop this from moving if possible. If you're not worried about if your colours move behind, then that's okay too. But for this, I thought I wanted them to stay still. So I am going to use some of this Distress Glaze. Now I think that you can use maybe Vaseline to have a similar effect. This does go a long way. A little bit goes a really long way. And if I'm honest, I bought this product like a couple of years ago when it came out, and I haven't used it until now. So what does that tell me? But anyhow, I am starting with the transfer process, and that means that the oxides will not move, so I guess it was worth it for that. But I am going to use these transfers. Now what you're meant to do is take off the plastic covering, dip them in a little container of water for up to 10 seconds or so, and then give them a light little sponge, and then you will kind of see that that top backing part comes away and slides off. Now I am starting off with using some words, some of this little script here, and again I'm just going to pop this down, and I'll kind of end up layering up this piece quite a lot. This one I went a little too fast. This was me being impatient, and as I said, I am also learning because I hadn't really used these products before, and as I make a few cards and go through the process, it's okay to make mistakes and just do the best that you can. Now it's on a tiny little bit wonky there since I fixed it, but as I said, it doesn't matter because we are going to be layering up a few little bits and pieces. I've used the remaining little bits of the words over there just so that I'm not wasting them. Here is a feather which I dip in my little container of water for a few seconds, and then I pop onto my sheet, and it looks so cool. I must say, I have filmed a few cards of these now, and I am well and truly hooked. I love these. It's not something that I'm going to use in every single card, don't get me wrong. I love stamping and I love die cutting so much, but I must say it takes the pressure away from having to stamp and colour, and that's okay. It just depends what you feel like at that time. So I will leave the links below to where you can get these from, and as I said, there's a whole different range. I just got a little few to try out and see how I like them, but these are really, really cool. So I am putting these ones on vellum. Now this is a heavyweight vellum, and it will warp a little bit because you're not meant to put so much water on vellum, but it ends up working out really well. So I have just adhered it like normal. It says on the back of these packages that you can transfer these onto wood, plastic, glass, leather, metal, and painted surfaces, journaling cards, a whole lot of different ranges of things. So obviously, I guess these are not necessarily meant for card making, but it's nice to be able to include them in card making. A couple of the bigger ones that I showed you at the beginning, I'm going to make a piece to go in my kitchen. Yeah, some really nice bits and pieces that I'm able to do with these, and not just card making, but it is really fun to be able to include them in my card making and just have a play. So here I have done a second rose on the vellum, and I did dry a tiny little bit, and then I'm able to kind of move it off. I made sure that these had plenty of water with them, and it is best to be a little bit patient. It takes 3 or 4 seconds for it to kind of transfer down onto whatever you're transferring it to. So it's best to wait those few seconds and kind of dab it with the sponge, and then that way you won't be hurrying the process. But yeah, it was really just fun, and I added all little bits and pieces. You can see I've used half pieces there so that I didn't waste them, and I've got a few different little flowers. I've got some blue ones. I think this one is a white one, and these are very transparent, so it kind of, you can see the flower, but it creates a really nice texture, and you can see all of the flowers lined up along the top and the bottom. And I must say, like, even I was quite surprised about how this started to come together, because at one point I wasn't 100% sure how this would come together and how it would all work, but I really love this card in the end, and it was nice to be able to finish it off using normal stamped sentiments as well. So I know where my big roses are going to go. I'm just deciding if I want another little feather to go down the side here. So you pull off the plastic there, dip it in the water. I have sped this up a little bit, remember, bits and pieces of this I need to speed up, otherwise the process would take a long time. So now I am going to create a sentiment for this. This is the, I think it's called Heartfelt Sentiments from Altenew. I have used this one lots of times. You've seen it in plenty of videos, and I am going to use the stamp that says "You are the best." Now I've got a piece of regular white cardstock here, and I'm stamping it in some VersaFine Onyx black ink, but I'm just going to make sure that I don't include the exclamation mark at the end here. So I'm just wiping it off with my finger. You could definitely mask it off or even cut it off, and you'd be able to add it back on later. But if you didn't want that there, I just didn't feel like it needed the exclamation mark. It was kind of a little bit more subtle without that, and it's just a card for a friend of mine, because she is the best. Now I do want it to kind of fit in with my background a little bit more, so I'm taking that same Victorian Velvet colour which I used in the background, and I have a finger dauber here, but I wanted to go in a little bit heavier, so I'm actually going to cut this down first so that I can get the nice edges, the inked edges that I want, rather than cutting it down second. And you could do this with a paper trimmer, but I just find with those really nice long scissors that I'm able to get a really nice straight cut. If I use little fussy cutting scissors, I never ever get it straight, but with the long bladed scissors, I definitely do. These ones happen to be the Tim Holtz ones, but I'm sure any long bladed scissors would work great. And you can see I'm adding a bit more ink on than I was before, and because I just don't want it to stick out and be stark white on this kind of beautiful background that we have created. So I want it to kind of not stand off the page quite as much. So I have cut it down, and then I will actually end up popping this up on foam tape. There is going to be a couple of elements that I popped up, because with the transfers I didn't want it to be all completely flat. So I was working to have a little bit of dimension on the page as well. Now it's just a matter of kind of putting everything together, and this was fun to see how the card came together, because even at this point I wasn't 100% sure how it was going to go, because not all of the elements were on the card. But I am going to pull back my 4 corners and then that little piece in the middle so that I can line it up perfectly on my 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base, and then it is all nice and even. Then I have all these little roses here. With the vellum and the colour in the roses, I'm able to put the foam tape on the back and you aren't able to see it. So that worked out really well. I did kind of put it in specific spots where it had the darkest parts of the roses, but I was able to hide it, which was really good. So I'm popping a couple of little roses up there, and then I'll put the sentiment on, and I have the third little rose which I'm going to just kind of sneak in. I actually end up kind of pulling up the sentiment here and sneaking it under a little bit more so that it kind of makes that beautiful triangle that is pleasing to the eye. They say the triangles are really pleasing, so that's how my card ended up. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project because I had a whole lot of fun. I have some more coming out like this, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, bye!